Hey there, I'm Tucker, and this is D&D Daily. Today we're going to be talking about a very unique Berserker Barbarian build called the Mounted Berserker. If you want to play the Mounted Berserker, you're going to need to be, obviously, a Berserker Barbarian. Our race is going to be custom lineage, and we are going to take the Ritual Caster feat, targeting a wizard. And at level 4, we're going to want to make sure to take the Mounted Combatant feat. The Mounted Berserker grew up from birth and was trained to become an Eldritch Knight. He learned martial technique as well as how to perform wizardry and ride a noble steed. However, none of these skills really fit him well. He hated wearing heavy armor. He liked to swing his weapon wildly instead of focusing on his technique, and he could never cast a single spell unless he was looking at his notebook. All in all, he was a poor Eldritch Knight, so he was kicked out of his training. He now set out to prove himself better than all those Eldritch Knights, using his own unique style to achieve victory. The personality of the Mounted Berserker is that he is brutish at times, but he is still intelligent. He is prideful. He wants to prove himself to the world, and he won't be looked down upon. He is also stubborn, refusing to give up even if he can barely move. Our combat style for this character really comes into its own at level 5 after we take the Mounted Combatant feat at level 4 and get our extra attack feature. On our mount, we will use a lance, giving us advantage on our attacks against medium or smaller creatures, and we can use reckless on large or bigger creatures. This combined with our Berserker rage and extra attack gives us 3 advantage attacks each turn, each dealing a d12 of damage, plus our rage bonus and our strength modifier. And while mounted, our lance is also a one-handed weapon, meaning we can use it with a shield. With a lance, we're also at reach from these targets, meaning we won't typically provoke opportunity attacks. Once we get to level 5, we can copy Phantom Steed into our spellbook if we can find it, and oh boy do we want to find it. That spell is going to be amazing for us. Having that spell means we will always have a trusty steed with us, giving us big mobility and extra bonuses from our Mounted Combatant feat. This steed disappears if it takes any damage, which is why we need to take the Mounted Combatant feat so that we can draw attacks toward us away from our mount to make sure our horsey survives. Once you get Mounted Combatant, if you aren't level 5 or aren't able to find Phantom Steed yet to put in your spellbook, we can just use a regular horse. Having a mount also gives us the big benefit of it counteracts our frenzied rage negative sides of exhaustion, as we usually won't be making too many checks because we're far away from combat on our steed and our movement isn't gimped because it is our horse's movement and not ours. So those level of exhaustions don't affect us nearly as much as it would a normal berserker. With our steed setup, we can go up to the brink of death by exhaustion. We can go up to 5 levels of exhaustion and still be able to contribute in combat. That being said, we won't be able to contribute much, but we can still hang in there. If/when we do inevitably get knocked off of our horse, or when our horse disappears, we still have our trusty axe with our shield. It's just going to be a d8 of damage instead of a d12, but the same tactics apply. And if all of this wasn't enough, we can take the Find Familiar spell as one of our rituals at level 1 and use it to support our team. Because we already get advantage from being mounted or from our reckless attack, we don't need the advantage that our familiar can offer with its help action, so we can instead give that advantage to our teammate. Our rogue stands out as a really good option, as does other martial classes or spellcasters getting ready to launch off a big spell. Out of combat, we are just like any barbarian in that we are strong and we do all the strong things. However, unlike other barbarians, we have a lot of out of combat utility, which is really great, so we should really take advantage of it. Our out of combat utility mainly comes from our Ritual Caster feat, which lets us cast all of our rituals using intelligence as our modifier. Some standout spells to start with are Find Familiar and Alarm. However, you can record any and all ritual spells that your DM gives you access to. Detect Magic, Comprehend Languages, Augury, and Leonman's Tiny Hut all stand out for early levels, and as you level up, this feature keeps getting stronger and stronger as you can keep learning rituals at all levels. And because of our ritual cast of Find Familiar, we can be a decent scout despite our bad wisdom score, because we can use that familiar to get into hard to reach places. In our downtime, the main things we're going to be focusing on is looking for ritual spells to copy into our spellbook. This is going to make our character stronger every time we copy a new spell in there, so we want to make sure to find a lot of them. And we're also going to be keeping an eye out for the Eldritch Knights that we were trained with in order to crap on them and make them look bad. The key mechanics of the Mounted Barbarian is that strength and constitution are going to be our main stats like any barbarian, but we will need at least a 13 in intelligence in order to take the Ritual Caster feat. The rest of the points we can put into dex to give us a bonus to our AC and dex saving throws. We also have to be thoughtful of who we are using our help action on for our familiar to get the best use out of it. Again, the rogue is probably the best person to set up for this. As a barbarian, we can always choose between no rage in combat versus raging in combat. But with the berserker, we also get the choice of frenzied rage in combat. So making that choice is going to bring a lot of nuance into our decision making, and it's really going to be something we have to consider every single fight, and we have to make that decision. Taking a frenzied rage might not always be the best choice because it gives exhaustion, and because we don't need that extra attack. Maybe no rage is the choice because it's going to be a quick fight. Just something to keep in mind with this character. The weaknesses of the mounted berserker start off with AoE damage. This AoE damage can kill our mount, which is a big sad. Other weaknesses include saving throws. When we do rage, we have immunity to the charmed and frightened conditions, which helps a little bit with wisdom saves. However, any saving throw, the main ones being dex and wisdom, are going to be just not very good for us. Ranged combat is also going to be an issue. We can use our mount to get into combat really quick and catch up to enemies, but anybody at range, including flying enemies, we don't really have anything to do against them. As an NPC, I would use this character as a rival to any organization of knights or mages, or even better, eldritch knights. He wouldn't necessarily be an enemy to them, but definitely a rival. He might try to have the party help him finish a quest before his rivals can, to embarrass them and make them look bad. The keynote for the mounted berserker is to make a berserker barbarian that isn't really that bad. Because we can ignore a lot of the effects of our exhaustion, because we have a lot of movement speed, and because we have out of combat utility, it makes this berserker barbarian actually a good barbarian and is really great for the flavor and the build of this class. How would you use the mounted berserker in one of your games? What would you do to make him more flavorful or mechanically better? Let us know in the comments below. We are D&D Daily. We release new content every single day all about D&D, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and we'll see you tomorrow.